Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we step into a courtroom where silence turned into thunder, and where decades of sacrifice collided with betrayal. What unfolded wasn't just a trial, it was the unraveling of an empire built on secrecy, manipulation, and conditional love. The room was still. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Reporters froze mid-sentence, pens hovered above paper. And then, her voice. You stole my money. You stole my years. You stole my trust, and now, you're going to hear me. It was Janelle Brown, no longer the quiet, composed second wife. No longer the woman who sacrificed in silence. Her words rang through the chamber like church bells calling a broken congregation to witness the truth. She wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for every woman who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or told to smile and endure. She stood tall, her hands trembling, not out of fear, but from a surge of clarity that had taken 30 years to arrive. Across the aisle, Kody Brown sat stiff, jaw locked, arms folded like a man clinging desperately to a crown that had already slipped through his fingers. He had once styled himself as the patriarch, the leader of a sprawling family. Now, he was just another man cornered by the consequences of his own deception. Beside him sat Robin Brown, the wife he had chosen above all others, the wife he had sheltered and favored. Her oversized sunglasses concealed her swollen eyes, her lips pressed tight in a line that could no longer hide the storm raging beneath. The judge, a silver-haired woman with decades of wisdom etched into her gaze, leaned forward slightly. Her voice was calm, steady. "Miss Brown, you may proceed." Janelle drew a breath, her shoulders squaring, her voice trembling only for a moment before cutting like steel. This is not about a failed marriage. This isn't about jealousy. And it certainly isn't about ratings or cameras. This is about justice, about betrayal. The words hit like a hammer. She went on, voice rising with each sentence. I stood by Kody Brown for 30 years. Through poverty, through childbirth, through upheaval. I mothered 6 children. I raised his others. I invested in his businesses. I gave him my ambitions, my autonomy, my stability. And what did I receive? An RV and a broken heart. Gasps spread through the courtroom. Some were journalists scrambling to scribble every word. Some were former family friends, tears filling their eyes as they realized the most reserved wife had finally unleashed her truth. From the plaintiff's table, her lawyer, Lisa Carmichael, slid a heavy binder forward. It landed with a thud that echoed through the room. Exhibit A, bank transfers, screenshots, emails, proof. Janelle's voice sharpened, each word a blade. $385,000? That's what disappeared. Moved into secret accounts. Money I helped earn, money I trusted him with. While he protected Robin from everything, I was left with nothing. The judge's eyebrows rose. So, Miss Brown, you funded, but you own nothing. Not even Coyote Pass? Janelle did not flinch. No, Your Honor. There were no contracts. No legal papers. Because Cody told us we didn't need them. We were one family, one financial body. He told us everything was shared. But behind closed doors, everything was being transferred into Robin's name. Murmurs swept across the room like wildfire. Robin stiffened, pale and trembling, her silence louder than any denial. Cody shifted uncomfortably, leaning toward his lawyer, but his whispered protests were powerless against the storm raging from Janelle's lips. Your Honor, Janelle continued, her voice breaking before hardening again. This is not revenge. This is accountability. This is not about spiritual marriage. It's about financial betrayal. About decades of manipulation that left me stripped of everything while he guarded one wife and abandoned the rest. She closed the binder gently, her gaze sweeping the room before locking onto Cody. I trusted him. I gave him my life, and he gave my money to Robin. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the judge paused, her pen frozen above her notes. Robin lifted her head at last. Her sunglasses slipped just enough to reveal bloodshot eyes, rimmed with tears she could no longer hide. But she said nothing. Not a single word. The judge shifted her focus to Cody's side. Defense, are you ready with your opening? But everyone could see it. The tremor in his attorney's hands, the uncertainty in his eyes. Something had shifted in that room. Because Janelle Brown, once the quiet background figure in a reality show about polygamy, was no longer silent. She was the tempest, the reckoning. And for Cody and Robin Brown, the storm had only just begun. The courtroom had shifted into a state of unbearable tension. The judge had recessed only for a few short minutes to review the mountain of evidence, binders so thick they could crush the very myths the Brown family had built their empire upon. These binders bore the damning label, Exhibit A, Financial Fraud. When the gavel struck a second time, the sound cracked through the silence like thunder. Everyone in that room, reporters, fans, even family members, understood in that instant. This was no longer just a domestic dispute. This was not simply about a fractured marriage or a bitter divorce. This was about fraud, about deception, about the deliberate concealment of hundreds of thousands of dollars siphoned into the shadows. And at the center of it all, Kody Brown, the man who had once paraded himself as the proud patriarch of a plural family, now reduced to a defendant accused of betraying the very women who had given him their loyalty, their labor, and their lives. Janelle's attorney, Lisa Carmichael, stepped forward with the confidence of a woman who knew the truth was on her side. Clad in a navy suit, her presence commanded the room. Her voice was calm but razor-sharp as she spoke. Your Honor, we are not here today to dissect a marriage. We are here to expose a long-standing, calculated pattern of financial misdirection. The words hung heavy. Then Lisa dropped the blow that would shake the courtroom walls. My client, Miss Janelle Brown, has reason to believe that Mr. Brown moved over $385,000, funds earned by the family, into an account controlled solely by Robin Brown. This was done without notice, without permission, and without explanation. The air shifted instantly. Gasps ricocheted across the benches. A reporter dropped his pen. A former family friend covered her mouth in shock. Kody Brown sat rigid, his face turning crimson, jaw twitching as if each word pierced deeper into the image he had spent decades crafting. His arms remained crossed tightly against his chest, the gesture of a man trying desperately to appear unmoved even as the world crumbled beneath him. To his right, Robin Brown shifted uncomfortably. Her hands twitched nervously in her lap, her fingernails digging into the flesh of her palms. Despite being indoors, she hid behind oversized sunglasses, as though mere glass could shield her from the judgment of a courtroom, from the truth she had silently profited from. Lisa pressed forward, relentless. For nearly 30 years, Miss Brown worked alongside her sister wives. She earned equally into the family's income. She managed businesses. She appeared on TLC. She promoted merchandise branded under the family's name. She was told, as all the wives were told, that every dollar was pooled together, that every sacrifice, every contribution, was for the greater good of the Brown family unit. The judge gave a slow, deliberate nod. Proceed with your first piece of evidence. Lisa lifted a document from the binder with measured precision. Exhibit A1. The transaction history for the family's shared account, covering the years 2016 through 2022. The courtroom monitor flickered to life. Suddenly, the wall behind Lisa illuminated with damning truth. Rows upon rows of numbers filling a spreadsheet. Line after line revealed transfers that were impossible to dismiss as coincidence. 45,000 here, 75,000 there. Each transfer neatly redirected into an account under the name R. Brown at a different Flagstaff branch. The descriptions of these transfers? Vague, carefully worded. Each one labeled innocuously as personal reallocation. The judge's eyebrow arched sharply. Were these funds ever available to Miss Brown? Lisa shook her head firmly. No, Your Honor, not once. When Miss Brown requested access to financial records in 2021, she was denied. She was told by Mr. Brown himself, and I quote, "It's none of your business, Janelle. Trust me." The monitor shifted again. And there it was, blown up for the entire courtroom to see. A text message exchange between Kody and Janelle. The words, "none of your business." "Trust me," lit up the screen like a scarlet letter. A collective gasp swept the courtroom. People leaned toward one another, whispering in disbelief. Some shook their heads. Others stared at Kody, whose face hardened like stone, his mask slipping further with each passing second. Lisa was unyielding. Exhibit A2, she continued, clicking to the next slide. The monitor now displayed an internal memo, bearing the signature of the family's business manager. She read it aloud. Per Kody's instruction, direct all streaming revenue to the R. Brown account to hold until Robin's mortgage has been paid. The blow landed like a hammer. Janelle's face tightened. Her eyes burned, not with surprise. She had lived this reality, but with the vindication of truth finally laid bare. Because while Kody had told Janelle there was no money for her to build a home, no money for her to leave the RV park, no money for her future, he had secretly funneled the family's revenue into Robin's safety net, ensuring her house, Her mortgage, her comfort were untouched. Lisa's tone sharpened, each word cutting like glass. Your Honor, these are not oversights. These are not accidents. This is not mismanagement. This is financial isolation. This is deliberate economic control, designed to strip my client of power and independence, while funneling resources into one wife's name. The judge tapped her pen against her legal pad, the sound quick, agitated. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, she asked, "Is there evidence that the other wives—" But before the judge could finish, the courtroom buzzed again, the tension nearly unbearable. Everyone could sense it. The floor was about to give way, and the truth Kody had buried for years was clawing its way into the light. Clawing its way into the light. The courtroom air had thickened, heavy with anticipation. Moments earlier, Exhibit A2 had ripped open Kody Brown's financial armor, but now the prosecution was ready to deliver another blow that would shake the very foundation of his credibility. The lights from the monitors glared against polished wood, and the audience leaned forward instinctively, their collective breath tethered to what came next. Lisa Carmichael, steady and unyielding, addressed the bench again. Her voice, controlled yet sharp as glass, cut through the silence. Your Honor, Christine Brown and Mary Brown were not only denied access to these accounts, they were systematically shut out. Christine herself has given us a written statement confirming that she was never allowed access. As for Mary, she was permitted only partial distributions, but always through Cody, who positioned himself as the sole gatekeeper. Every request had to filter through him, every dollar demanded an explanation. Yet, Robin Brown, his legal wife, was granted direct and unchallenged access to the very account that held the bulk of the family's wealth. A hush fell again. It wasn't just inequality, it was favoritism dressed up as financial control. The monitor flickered to life once more, and the courtroom braced itself. Exhibit A3 appeared on the screen. A single devastating confirmation of deposit into the R. Brown Trust, dated 4 months before Robin Brown closed on her lavish $900,000 Flagstaff property. Lisa turned slowly, deliberately, her finger rising to point at the timestamp on the screen. This transaction, she said, her voice ringing with precision, occurred mere weeks after Janelle Brown requested permission to use her rightful share of family money to purchase a modest home of her own. Mr. Brown denied her request, telling her it was not financially viable. Yet here we stand, Your Honor, with proof that the very funds Janelle was denied were quietly funneled into Robin Brown's trust. The silence was so profound that even the scratching of a reporter's pen seemed sacrilegious. All eyes turned toward Kody Brown. The judge herself, her expression cool but increasingly sharpened with scrutiny, shifted her gaze to the defendant. Mr. Brown, do you have anything you wish to say? Kody rose slowly, almost theatrically, his attorney at his side. His voice came out in a rush, words tumbling forward in a desperate attempt to seize control of the narrative. Your Honor, this was never manipulation. It was responsibility. I wasn't hiding money. I was preserving it. I feared the family's future would be squandered if too many hands had access. I did what I had to do to protect us all. The judge's eyebrow arched, her skepticism slicing through his defense. So you chose to preserve it in one set of hands, Robin's? The words landed like a dagger. Kody stammered, his face betraying a flicker of panic. Robin was the only wife legally bound to me. The only one I could trust with property, legal documents, taxes. Lisa's interruption cracked like a whip. So spiritual wives, Mr. Brown, function like legal ones when it comes to labor and contribution, but they receive nothing in return? The courtroom buzzed again, whispers bouncing like sparks from one row to the next. Kody faltered, shaking his head. That's not what I meant. The judge cut him off sharply. Mr. Brown, yes or no? Did you consult with Ms. Brown before transferring joint funds into an account controlled exclusively by Robin Brown? A pause, long, suffocating. Kody's lips parted. His throat worked. And then, no. Janelle inhaled deeply, but her eyes did not glisten. There were no more tears left in her. She had cried them all years ago. What sat on her face now was something stronger. Resolve. Lisa pressed forward, her tone now edged with righteous fury. Your Honor, let us be clear. This is not an isolated mistake. This is not one lapse of judgment. This is a deliberate and repeated act of economic gaslighting. My client was told again and again that she was irresponsible, that she was selfish, that she was ungrateful. She was forced to question her sanity, her capability, her worth, when in truth she was being systematically excluded. Financially crippled while Robin was financially elevated. When Janelle was told she had no money, she was living in an RV. Meanwhile, Robin walked marble floors. Kody's jaw slackened. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For once, no defense came. The audience shifted uncomfortably, the tension unbearable. Gasps, whispers, and the low clicking of cameras filled the silence. Reporters typed feverishly, knowing this wasn't just testimony, it was history unraveling in real time. Lisa concluded with quiet, devastating weight. My client is not asking for favors. She is demanding her rightful share of the fortune she helped create. This is not about polygamy. This is about power. And about a man who has abused it. The judge leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her legal pad. For a moment, the entire room seemed frozen in her stillness. Then she closed her folder firmly. We will recess for lunch. Court will resume this afternoon. At that time, we will hear testimony from Miss Christine Brown. The gavel fell. The courtroom erupted into low, buzzing chaos. Journalists dashed to send updates. SisterWives enthusiasts texted their group chats with breaking headlines. Cody funneled family funds into Robin's trust. Janelle Brown exposes $385,000 betrayal. Courtroom drama leaves Kody speechless. But Janelle didn't hear any of it. She sat quietly, her eyes fixed straight ahead, her heart steady. For decades, no one had asked her the question that haunted her soul. Where did the money go? And now at last, the entire world was hearing the answer. When the court returned from recess, the atmosphere had shifted. The gallery was alive with murmurs, a low hum of disbelief and anticipation. Journalists had doubled their notes. Fans whispered with wide eyes. Even the bailiff stood straighter, as though sensing the shift in power. Then the heavy back door creaked open. Christine Brown entered. Every head turned. Cameras popped in rapid succession. Even Cody flinched, his jaw tightening at the sight of another former wife stepping into the light. Christine's pace was slow, deliberate, unshakable. She wore a charcoal blouse, modest yet sharp, her blonde hair swept back neatly. There was a calm fire in her eyes, a steadiness the world had rarely seen during her years with Cody. This was not Christine, the wife. This was Christine, the witness. The bailiff guided her to the stand. She raised her right hand, swearing to tell the truth, her gaze unwavering. Cody shifted, his face twisting. Was it guilt, fear, or perhaps the dawning realization that the empire he built on secrets and favoritism was beginning to collapse beneath him? Christine sat down, folded her hands neatly in her lap, and stared forward. Not once did her eyes stray toward Cody. Lisa Carmichael leaned in, her tone respectful but steady. Miss Brown, could you tell us about your experience with the family's finances during your time with Mr. Brown? Christine didn't hesitate. Her voice, calm but cutting, filled the chamber. I was married to Cody for more than 25 years. Spiritually, not legally. We raised 6 children together. Throughout that time, I was told, just like Janelle and Mary, that the money we earned from TV, from books, from businesses, was divided equally. That every wife had a share. Lisa nodded. And was that your real experience? Christine's lips pressed tightly before she released the words like a blade. No, not even close. Gasps broke out in the gallery. One TLC producer sitting in the back jolted forward, eyes wide, as though the franchise itself was now on trial. Christine continued, her words clear and deliberate. At first, we trusted him. Cody assured us not to worry. He said he had it under control. But when Robin joined the family, everything changed. It was like a light switch. Suddenly, the sacrifices were demanded of us. And the rewards? They all went to her. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Could you explain what you mean by upgrades? Christine nodded firmly. When the family moved to Flagstaff, Robin was given a new home, immediately purchased in her name. Janelle was forced to live in an RV. I was in a rental. Mary was isolated and alone. Robin was elevated, while the rest of us were diminished. The courtroom sat spellbound, as though every word Christine spoke was another nail in the coffin of Kody Brown's legacy. Every conversation about money boiled down to one unshakable truth. Kody Brown was always, without exception, looking out for Robin's interests first. Lisa Carmichael, Janelle's lawyer, pressed the remote in her hand. The courtroom monitor flickered to life, and suddenly a new document glowed against the wall, a mortgage agreement. One name signed across it in bold strokes, Robin Brown, and beside hers, another, Kody Brown. No one else. Christine leaned forward in her chair, eyes narrowing. Her voice was steady, deliberate, almost surgical. Janelle asked if we could use some of the family money to help her buy a modest home of her own. Kody refused. He said it wasn't necessary, not important. But then, only weeks later, he co-signed Robin's mortgage, nearly $1 million. The gallery erupted in whispers. Pens scratched furiously across notepads. The judge leaned forward in her chair. And then, in a flash of uncharacteristic fury, Kody Brown exploded out of his seat. "That's not fair," he bellowed, voice echoing through the chamber. "You don't know the whole story." The judge slammed her gavel so hard it rang like a gunshot. "Mr. Brown, sit down immediately. Another outburst like that and you'll be held in contempt. You will get your turn." Not before. Kody's face turned crimson as he sank back into his chair, fists balled, jaw clenched. His fury filled the room, but Christine never flinched. Not once. Her eyes locked on him unblinking. "I do know the story, Kody, because I lived it. I watched Janelle suffer in silence for years. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't unstable. She wasn't selfish. She was pinned. Every time she asked a question about money, you shut her down. You belittled her. You told her to trust you while you funneled everything into Robin's hands." The room went still. Christine's words carried the weight of decades. Janelle sat beside her lawyer, eyes glistening but unbroken. Lisa stepped forward, voice sharp as glass. "Miss Brown, to your knowledge, did Janelle have access to any of the family's legal documents? Any of the financial accounts? Any property deeds?" Christine's answer came without hesitation. No, she wasn't on the house deeds. She wasn't on the bank accounts. Not even on the title of Coyote Pass. And yet, she was working nonstop. Filming the show. Selling merchandise. Organizing every holiday, every family event. She gave everything. And she got nothing. The judge's face tightened, her brow furrowing. Clearly disturbed. Lisa handed Christine a stack of screenshots. Text messages. Between Kody and Janelle. Christine flipped through them, her jaw tightening with every line. Kody's replies were cold, clipped, dismissive. "You're not legally entitled to it. I can't just give out money, Janelle. It's complicated. Robin and I are taking care of it." Christine shook her head as she looked up. "This isn't just bad management. This is textbook control. Kody kept the money in Robin's name so he could pretend it wasn't his fault. He designed the system to make her powerless." The judge leaned forward, voice like a blade. "Miss Brown, in your opinion, did Mr. Brown deliberately exclude the other wives financially?" Christine's answer was swift, firm. "Yes, and worse. He made us believe it was for our good. He told us we were spiritual wives, not legal ones. That the law wouldn't protect us. But the truth is, he wasn't protecting us, he was protecting himself." Gasps rolled through the courtroom. Robin lowered her head, oversized sunglasses no longer able to hide the tears spilling down her face. Her hands twisted in her lap, fingers shaking. Lisa's voice softened. "Miss Brown, why did you agree to testify today?" Christine turned toward Janelle. Her eyes didn't waver, because Janelle never gave up on protecting this family, even when the family didn't protect her. "Because I stayed silent too long, believing Kody's lies. And because I want my daughters to know one thing, silence is never the solution." Janelle's eyes brimmed. The judges did too. The entire courtroom held its breath. After a long, heavy pause, the judge finally spoke. "Miss Brown, thank you. Your testimony is crucial for this court to understand the context of what has transpired." Christine sat back, head high, dignity radiating. For once, Kody wasn't raging. He wasn't charismatic. He looked small, vulnerable. The court wasn't listening to angry ex-wives. It was listening to women who had been silenced, manipulated, and controlled, and who were finally, fearlessly, speaking the truth. As Christine passed Janelle on her way back to her seat, the two exchanged a simple nod. No words, just recognition. Just solidarity. And outside the courtroom, the headlines were already catching fire. Christine stands up to Kody, courtroom bombshell. Janelle trapped, Christine testifies, $385K secret revealed. Kody manipulated wives with money and threats. But inside, it wasn't about headlines. It wasn't about glory. It was about justice. The tide had turned. The authority in that room no longer belonged to Kody Brown, not his voice, not his presence, not his power. Now it belonged to the women who had once stood behind him, now standing against him. Christine's testimony had shattered the illusion. Janelle's evidence had cemented it. And the judge's eyes turned to Kody Brown at last. "Mr. Brown," she said firmly, "you may now take the stand." The room seemed to hold its breath. Kody rose slowly, each step toward the witness box heavy as stone. His collar tugged nervously, his eyes darted, once toward Robin, but never toward Christine or Janelle. He couldn't face them, not now. After being sworn in, he placed his hands on the rail, back rigid, trying to hold on to a crumbling facade. His lawyer approached. "Mr. Brown," the attorney began smoothly, "can you help the court understand your perspective? Why were certain financial decisions made as they were?" Kody nodded stiffly. His voice at first was low. "I know I've made errors," he said with a strange gentleness, "but I always tried to run this family with structure, with fairness. I didn't get every situation right, but I was never trying to hurt anyone." He turned to the judge, carefully measuring his words. "Your Honor, I had 4 wives, 18 children, and no blueprint. We weren't a normal family. I had to make hard choices." His lawyer jumped in quickly. "So, you weren't deliberately excluding Miss Brown?" "Not at all," Kody replied too quickly. "I was just trying to keep things organized. When Robin and I married legally, it made sense to put assets in her name. For taxes. For credit. For logistics." The room bristled. Lisa Carmichael rose slowly, her eyes sharp as steel. "Your Honor," she said, "may I cross-examine?" The judge gave a single deliberate nod. And just like that, the real battle was about to begin. "Permission granted," the judge replied, her tone clipped yet commanding, the gavel still resting in her hand like a symbol of restrained power. The courtroom quieted, the air tense, every journalist ready, every eye locked on the battle that was about to unfold. Lisa rose from her seat with the patience of a predator, her movements deliberate, her heels clicking against the polished wood as if announcing each strike before it landed. She stood before the bench, her presence polite, but her voice carried a blade's edge. "Mr. Brown," she began, her words slicing through the silence. "You tell us this was about structure, about leadership, about keeping order. But let me ask you," she raised a large blown-up printout for the entire room to see, "what about this?" The screen lit up with Kody's words, printed in bold, "I can't give you access to the accounts." "That's not your lane," the gallery murmured, gasps rippling like waves across the benches. Kody's jaw tightened, his body stiffening as though someone had exposed him naked before the crowd. "I was under stress," he muttered defensively. Lisa tilted her head, eyes narrowing. "Stress? Then let's talk about lanes, shall we?" She clicked the remote and another slide lit up. Photos, charts, receipts. "You had a wife, Janelle Brown, who carried this family. She sold family-branded products. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes on your television show. She raised 6 of your children, Mr. Brown, and assisted in multiple real estate relocations across states. She gave her time, her effort, her loyalty." Lisa stepped forward, her voice rising. "And when she asked for financial openness, for the simple dignity of knowing where the money she earned was going, you brushed her off. Tell me, was that leadership?" Kody squirmed, his shoulders twitching, eyes darting nervously. "She was always questioning me," he snapped, the frustration spilling out. It was draining. Lisa's gaze hardened. She didn't move. "Questioning?" she repeated softly, like a whip cracking. "Or advocating?" Silence. He had no answer. She stepped closer now, closing the space between them, her voice dropping into a tone that carried both control and condemnation. "Mr. Brown, did you ever once, just once, introduce Janelle to a full financial breakdown of how the TLC money was divided among your wives?" "No," Kody said, his voice a low growl. "Did you ever provide her legal access to the family accounts?" "No." Lisa turned her head slowly toward the judge, then back at Kody. "And did you, or did you not, co-sign a mortgage for Robin Brown using communal funds Janelle helped generate, while denying Janelle the ability to buy her own home?" Kody froze, his lips parting. The pause was long, painful. His voice finally cracked out. One word, "Yes." The courtroom erupted with murmurs. Lisa slammed the paper down. "Thank you. No further explanation is necessary." The blow landed. Kody's reasoning, his defenses, the careful facade he had held for decades, it was crumbling in plain sight. But Lisa wasn't done. Her eyes glinted as she changed the slide again. "Let's move to the matter of Coyote Pass." The words hit the room like thunder. All the wives in the gallery stiffened. "Mr. Brown," she pressed, "did Janelle Brown financially contribute to that property?" "Yes," he replied quickly, too quickly. Is her name on the deed? No. Lisa arched a brow, cocking her head with cold disbelief. So she funded a dream she was never legally a part of. And you call that love? You call that leadership? She knew what she was getting into. Kody shot back, desperate, almost pleading. Lisa lunged, her voice sharp and unrelenting. Did she? Or did she rely on a man who professed to love her to look out for her interests? Kody flinched. His smugness deflated. For the first time that day, his power seemed to drain right out of him. Lisa turned to the judge, her voice unwavering, every word cutting like stone. Your Honor, what we see here is not leadership. This is selective loyalty. He defended one wife and abandoned the others. He wielded the law as a shield and emotional manipulation as a weapon. The judge nodded gravely, removing her glasses. Mr. Brown, would you like to respond? Kody leaned forward, his voice tight, almost breaking. Look, I tried to keep it all together. I tried to make the right decisions, but it was impossible to please everyone. Robin was the only one who didn't fight me. She stood by me, so yes, I trusted her more. I gave her more. The words spilled out before he could catch them. The courtroom went still. Lisa's eyebrow arched. So because she was obedient, you rewarded her financially? I didn't say that, Kody snapped too late. But you just did. Janelle's eyes fell downward, her lips pressed into a hard line. Christine shook her head slowly, disbelief written across her face. Robin clutched her tissue tighter, trembling. The judge's voice broke the silence. Mr. Brown, you have just admitted in your own words that your decisions were based on emotional favoritism, not fairness. That is the essence of this lawsuit. Kody's voice wavered, desperate to salvage what little control he had left. This wasn't abuse. It was leadership. The judge fixed him with a piercing stare, her words deliberate and final. That is not leadership, Mr. Brown. That is favoritism. That is financial manipulation dressed up as patriarchal authority. She lifted a file from the bench and read aloud Christine Brown's prior deposition. Kody controlled everything, from housing to holidays to hugs. And if we ever questioned him, we were punished. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. The gallery sat in frozen silence. Lisa turned back to the judge. So when Janelle Brown asked for access to an account she funded, when she asked for the portion of a house she helped purchase, when she begged for her first shred of autonomy, his leadership told her, no, sit, stay in your place. No one moved. Not even Robin. The judge inhaled deeply, looking directly at Kody. Mr. Brown, what you've painted is not a portrait of faith or family. It is a hierarchy of personal benefit, favoritism disguised as duty. This is not about polygamy. It is about the misuse of power. And this court recognizes the devastating impact of that imbalance. The gavel struck once. The verdict fell like a hammer of history. The judge's words carried across the silent courtroom. On behalf of the plaintiff, Mrs. Janelle Brown, this court orders Mr. Kody Brown to pay $415,000 in restitution, as well as awarding her a 30% interest in the Coyote Pass property. The sound of the gavel echoed like a war drum. Janelle's eyes filled with tears, but not of grief. These were tears of liberation, 30 years of silence broken in a single moment. Kody sat motionless, hollowed, his face pale, his posture collapsed. Robin tried to take his hand, but he didn't move. Janelle rose from her seat, Christine sweeping in to embrace her as a small ripple of whispered cheers passed through the gallery. She turned to Kody, her voice steady, strong, and final. I'm free now. For years I stayed silent to preserve the illusion of family, even when it meant losing myself. But not anymore. You told me to stay in my lane. Well, guess what? This is my lane now. And I walk it alone, proud, independent, done with lies. Her voice rose, ringing through the chamber. You cannot silence me anymore, Kody. Not in this courtroom, not in our home, not in front of our children. The world sees you for who you truly are. The silence after her words was absolute, broken only by Robin's soft sobs. As Janelle walked out, her heels striking like thunder across marble, each step sounded less like defeat and more like freedom itself. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed. Mrs. Brown, is this about money or justice? What message do you want to send to other women? Janelle paused. She didn't look at the cameras, she looked inward, then smiled softly. This wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. About showing my daughters and every woman watching that you can walk away. And you can win. Christine joined her, their hands interlocked, not as co-wives, but as survivors. As warriors. Inside, Kody sat alone. No wives, no children, no audience. Only silence. And for the first time in decades, silence was his punishment. Punishment.